All right, so let's start. I asked Robert to come on first because here's the situation. Everyone's pointing fingers at each other, and rightfully so. Clara, I love you to life. You look beautiful. I can see you. Um, and, um, that's not working. Absolutely is not working. So, with that being said, the pointing fingers, the diversions, we've been torn apart. Let's just get back to the basics. And if we can start to tell people what really happened, what led us up to this, and I hate the word lead because there's so much more than lead, so much more. And if we can start from that and then start to move forward, maybe Joe Public and the rest of the world will kind of start to understand. So I asked Robert because he's been such a wealth of information, and I can't remember all the words he says or even know how to pronounce them, or, he's been a tremendous help to us. So with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to him and kind of start from as far back as you can remember and leading up to where we're at now, what they should have done, what they didn't do, how things can affect people, the whole bit. And is there more than lead and Legionella, if you know that to be the case? So let's hand it over to Robert. Applause! Applause! This is Robert Stewart, also known as Wastewater Bob.
1983. I was at the conference table with, what was his name? He was the emergency manager then, Jimmy Rutherford. And he was packing up to leave. He was the mayor in 78, and then he took on, some new mayor came in, and then he was asked to be the EM, and then he turned it over to somebody else, and I was in the office with him. And the conference table was full of papers. I mean, it's probably still there. You couldn't see the table. There was 3-foot piles of papers. And he says, Bob, I'm quoting him, I've read every paper on this conference table, and there's not a single one that says the pipeline, when it gets to Imlay City, would turn south to Romeo. How is it that we paid for it and don't end up owning it? And that's the end of the quote. That's exactly what he said. So,
and this is a gentleman from, I'm sorry to interrupt, this is a gentleman from Flint.
Yeah, Jimmy Rutherford. Everybody knew him back in the day. You youngins over here don't remember him, but he was a pretty cool mayor. And
for us transplants.
Yeah, Flint was rocking at the time. No, he'd been involved with Flint from way back. And as the story goes, he used to sell hot dogs. He had a little rolling hot dog stand out in front of Citizens Bank, and people during lunch would go out and have a hot dog with him, and then it ultimately became mayor. Anyways, that got under my skin, and it's been there ever since. For instance, I had a breakfast meeting with the Attorney General when he was inaugurated, and the essence of it was watch the crime on the pipeline. So,
Attorney General, when he was inaugurated, do you recall the Attorney General at that time?
Yeah, it was pretty recent. Names escape me these days. I don't remember him.
Is it the gentleman before Dana Nessel?
Yes.
Oh my! Shoot.
Yeah,
Attorney General. Shoot.
Yeah.
Shooty.
So, yeah.
That's cool. Is it shoot or shooty?
Yeah, Bill Shooty.
For real, don't get me in trouble.
That was as far as it went, because on the legal aspect, he does his work going on. I'm not privy yet. But just that there was a new pipeline coming in. So the new pipeline actually emulates out of Florida. There is a problem with U.S. sugar in Florida. The sugar cane won't grow with standing water. It all dies. So there has to be a way of getting rid of the surface water off of almost 600,000 acres of sugar cane in central Florida. So they built Lake Okeechobee, And of course, they had to release. And what a lot of people don't realize is there's a pipe that goes from the lake to north of Fort Lauderdale, and there's another big pipe that goes from the lake to north of Tampa. So they had to open up the levee, which they did about a month ago again here, but they had to open it up and let a lot of the water, raw water, discharge. And over the years, they found organisms that were mutating in the big cypress. So the EPA down here has been sensitive to that. But anyways, this discharge went all around southern Florida here and killed, billions of dollars worth of commerce and fish and all kinds of critters. So DeSantis got involved, and he went and he looked at the lake, and I've been a little bit involved with that work, but through the Lemon Bay Conservancy organization.
But so how does this relate to Michigan?
Well, how does it relate to Flint? Yeah. Well, the thumb grows a lot of sugar beets.
Bob, we can only see your mouth. No, there we go.
Oh.
There's our savior.
The thumb grows a lot of sugar beets, and the U.S. sugar is huge. I'm told 93% of all the sugar in the United States is made by U.S. sugar.
Yep.
And U.S. sugar is owned by the Motts. So
by the who?
By the Motts. M-O-T-T-S.
Motts? M-O-T-T-S.
Yeah.
That have a foundation?
In Flint.
Right, the one where the deceased.
I'm not sure what the connection is between the foundation.
No, but the one I'm trying to figure, Mott. Right, yeah. But the Motts own it. So where the deceased president of the Mott Foundation and group helped work with Governor Snyder in not only putting the emergency manager law into place, which is something someone else will probably come on and talk about another time, but also picking, huh?
The deceased president, Bill White, Ridgway's dad.
It could be. I just don't remember his name, but I'll check. And also pick the 2 emergency managers as well. So Mott's done a lot for Flint.
Well, they have, but the issue here is in Florida. And
right.
The EPA wrote a letter a number of years ago that this problem has to be fixed or a cease and desist order would go out. So which brings us up to 2009 when there was initial talks about building another pipeline, shipping raw water from North Huron into the thumb area. Now you can't grow plants with treated water, the chlorine and etc. You need raw water. So the primary force of the pipe started in Florida. And so it was built, and usually a pipe, the treatment system would be put at the source of the water, not inland 60 miles, because the water tends to go anaerobic actually, oxygen deficient, and these organisms grow that you ultimately have to get rid of. But the primary driving force, now keep in mind, I'm not talking from a government issue or a legal issue or any of that. I don't get involved with any of that. I'm strictly the scientist, okay? And I look at this all through science. So,
which is what's so helpful.
Yeah, so we have an issue here in Florida, and the issue went to Flint because U.S. Sugar can grow more sugar beets in the thumb, and they modified the Pioneer Sugar Plant in Bay City, put an extra treatment lagoon in. So all the wheels are turning to commercialize the sale of water to the farmers up in the thumb. So keep in mind that was probably a very strong driving force to put that program together. And this information has never been brought out to the general public. The other things that come in, subject to, is the economic system in Flint. The Buick City complex, we used to supply waste treatment products, absorbents, and the like of that for materials. And if you were in the basement area, it'd be called the Buick City plant, which was miles big. I mean, it was huge.
What's
And
the
it
name
was
of
like
that? The basement plant? The basement plant?
Yeah, the basement, the lowest level. And when you're down there, there's big pillars and the boom, 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 boom upstairs, and the floor is thundering under your feet. And there's certain cardoned off areas that had what looked like PCBs leaking, that had leaked over the 100 years of operating there from transformers, and it looked like an ice skating rink for a mile long. It was huge, and this was just when Buick City was coming in, and so we knew that plant, that whole complex had to come down. Well, then General Motors, of course, went out of business, and they reincorporated. So then they no longer were the responsible party.
You mean they went out of business? Oh, the bailout.
Yeah, 2008, 2009.
The bailout, yeah.
They reincorporated, and that released them from the liability, and the whole thing got torn down. I did mention this as a little news clip. One time we had a tour there for the general public, and they got me, and I made a news clip, but never got out. So now this is all coming to surface that we've got organic compounds leaching from that area into the river, and what do we do? Quite frankly, I've been
When you talk about Buick City, can I ask you a question? Does that just affect Flint, or does it affect the township and other areas? Because I'm no scientist, I'm no rocket scientist, but I'm smart, and I'm smart enough to know that in these things that contamination, anything, doesn't go only down, it goes sideways, the stuff's airborne. I can't, it's been sitting for all this time. Is it me?
Mm-hmm.
Is it me?
Yeah, where's it going? Well, we say the water flows, but actually the earth rotates once a day, right? 24 hours, it goes around once. So actually the ground is solid, the water is liquid, so the water actually lags from the rotation. So we say the water migrates, or the water moves. It's actually the earth moving over it. But nevertheless, it's moving in the direction of actually it plumes as it moves. It's sort of like a triangle. As it continues to move away, it gets more diluted, but it spreads out more. At least.
So would that be what's affecting the people in the township in Beecher, which is now called Mount Morris Township, and also the city of Mount Morris? They're saying only lead, but I'm hearing from people, I'm not buying that, and not after Flint, if it's only lead.
Well, there we get into the Clean Water Act of 1978. It's been modified ever since. But when you get your water quality report from the city, there's 4 pages to it, right? There's a front page, says how pretty Flint is, or Mount Morris or whatever, Detroit. And the second page is how to read it, what the abbreviations mean. And then the third page is the analysis. Well, there's between 15 and 17 items on that page. That's all they're required to report on. Well, there's some 86,000 compounds out there that they don't check for. And of course, the PFAS wasn't on there. There's,
4 to 6%, 551 days in Flint. That's what it seems as though we've ingested. Dr. Mona didn't even dispute that.
Yeah.
Neither is Dr. Zervos, who also has added that the people of Flint were ingesting biofilm long before we ever got there in 2012. So for us to have gone down as quickly as what we did, it didn't seem as surprising to him because we weren't used to it.
Yeah. So, we have a lot of 1, 2, 3 punches going on.
And Legionella. How do you have Legionella in a hospital? And you don't tell the people that they're going through the doors.
Yeah.
Or the people that work there.
Yeah. Well, when you have a dead zone in a pipe and it sets, not enough oxidation potential for not enough chlorine in the water, then the Legionella can grow and multiply. Legionella is in all water everywhere,
Yeah,
um,
I realize that. I've seen
but
stuff
it
happen
doesn't
here. Yeah.
grow to the extremes where it becomes infectious.
Right.
It's when you get a lot of the colonies, colony forming units, that you can get it.
Okay. So let's go back to the focus. I keep getting us off focus, which is crazy. So what should have they done? What should they have done? What didn't they do? Why do you think they didn't do it? I mean, how can people be? So they got reports from different consulting firms and stuff, and they just didn't do what I, I don't know. Maybe you're better at saying this, Robert. You're much more calm and
Well,
smart.
that one consulting firm, they were paid $40,000. Now that may seem like a lot of money, but it's nothing. And a very short report on a very targeted issue, and now they're being sued for all of this millions and millions of damages.
Because they've made a choice.
Well, they're hired to report on a topic or some sort of a thing.
So it was just the specific they were hired for.
They're not all encompassing in this whole issue.
What about the other one? There were two. They turned around and ordered a second one because they didn't like the first one.
Yeah. Yeah, usually you hire a consultant to substantiate your position.
And what's going on with the scientists? Not you, but this has been some crazy scientists. I mean, people were working together. I mean, they were coming up with stuff, and it just seemed like who's on first, and everybody's suing each other.
Yeah.
How is that helping us?
It's not, you know. But getting back to the water quality report, the water quality issue, there's virtually tens of thousands of chemicals that still haven't been. Let me give you an example. Endocrine interrupter, the estrogen from birth control pills. There's trainloads of birth control pills consumed in this country.
Right. Well, you're not supposed to dump your medicine down the toilet.
No, you do dump your medicine though, because you urinate it out, you poop it out.
Oh yeah, you're true.
It goes to the waste plant.
They're doing that around wastewater and yeah.
They don't analyze for it.
They're finding COVID. They're finding COVID. So COVID, what are you gonna do?
COVID, of course. You know your poop is like 90% bacteria. So the COVID, yeah, of course there's valid COVID in there. They have no way of treating it there. And but anyways, this stuff gets in the river as discharge, and it comes back, goes up to Bay City. It comes around and it's sucked up in the pipeline, and they have no way of treating it at the water treatment plant, even the new one. So yeah, we're getting these compounds, endocrine interrupters.
Right. But that stuff, I understand that's on top of what was so horrible that was with the Flint River that they should have done, didn't do, and then even the entire time that they knew. And they did nothing to reverse it or anything. They just kind of like kept it quiet, and they knew. Yeah. They knew beforehand. So what I'm saying is, I know that they didn't use, now I can't think of it because the struggle's real. I'll think of it, not inflammatory, corrosion control.
The corrosion.
They didn't use, right.
Let me first say a startling comment.
I have more chlorine in me than Clorox does, I'm sure.
There's nothing wrong with the Flint River. The problem is the protocol of treatment. I mean, you can take camel piss and treat it and make perfectly good, pure water. Like same with the Flint River. The engineering company that designed the protocol, and granted, they were probably given constraints. They might have been told, we want to upgrade, when the city folks should have kept their mouth shut and give us your best option here of treatment, and then done a pro forma study, which was never done, which is a benchtop copy of the real McCoy, and then see what happens to the organisms in the treatment and analyze it before and after. They didn't do that. They were probably told, we want to upgrade this, what should we do? And of course, they're challenged now to upgrade. Well, that's a mistake in communication link from people that just don't know what to do when they hire an engineering company. The engineering company is there to make profit. And they have the engineering company of record. They all have their marketing plans and everything like any other business does. So the equipment was put in as an upgrade. I guess they spent $50 million. And as Art Woodson conferred on his site, Bob Stewart said that the equipment was put in bass backwards, because we went through a tour there, and some of the equipment was put in bass backwards, and I made that statement. And that it was a flow-through system that was the wrong protocol. It was just the wrong treatment protocol. So that went in.
Did they just not have the people that understood, or did they just not care? Or is it a matter of both at some point, because they were on a mission to do something?
Nobody knew enough on the front end to ask the right questions. Now keep in mind, I used to sell water and wastewater equipment, and these have to go out for government bids. And of course, my customers were township supervisors, and I would advise to them, and the engineering companies. And so a lot of them leaned on me to ask questions because I understood the microbiology more than the other salesmen. Just they didn't know enough of the city people to ask the right questions, and
when they believed they were doing and treating the water,
Let me give you another example.
Were they even measuring it? Can I just wait? Or were they just pouring it through the hole on the floor at the treatment plant?
Well, there was all of that later on. Excuse me. The upgrades obviously weren't working. When I went through the tour, the chlorinator was inoperative, and I told the tour guide at the time, and that was the end of the issue with me.
Had the water already been switched at that point?
Yeah. Was it switched? I don't remember. I don't remember if it was slightly before or slightly after, but it was about that time.
I still say we should have kept Dane Walling in. It's better to deal with the devil you know than the devil you don't. But go ahead.
Well, he didn't know enough either, so.
He knew enough.
In fact, I had a meeting of sidewalk.
He knew enough, and he didn't say anything. He made a choice. That's my.
Yeah. Well, again, he wasn't a water guy.
No, he was the mayor.
Yeah.
City of Flint water plant. I don't know. Is it not related?
So right from the get-go, there was motive, and there wasn't a treatment protocol designed for the influent to a target effluent that you want to achieve. That basic work just wasn't done. And then it was all downhill from there. To this day, regarding your corrosion control issue, to this day, you could call up the drain commissioner or whoever.
Jeff Wright's going to take my call.
What is the Langley index number as I speak? And nobody will give you an answer. To this day, going through everything we did, the Langley index is a measure of the corrosivity of the water. Now, the operator should know that at any minute. Wouldn't you think?
You would think.
Wouldn't you think? So call them up, say, what's the corrosion index of the water today, right now? And he should give you a number.
I'm just so dumbfounded that we have allegedly all of these systems in place that are supposed to check and back check and protect EPA, Environmental Protection Agency.
Yeah.
And I understand that Racer Trust is an NGO of the bankruptcy court for the EPA, and they're only given a certain amount of money, and the land sits until somebody's interested in buying it. But if they're not doing what they're, look at what happened. Outfall Pipe 1 is all she wrote. I mean, that was it. That was the end right there. That's where the PFAS came from, and this is nothing new. So when they're touting, oh, we've got PFAS, we've just noticed at Buick City, they're lying. They're lying. They're lying. So if that's the case, how did we ingest it for 551 days?
Yeah, of course, Flint's not the only one with PFAS. That's all over the.
At 4 to 6% ingesting it, that's a lot. That's a lot. That's a lot more than a firefighter takes in their lifetime career.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
So far we've talked about PFAS.
Oh, and there's a whole list, as you saw, Dr. Mona. I can't even pronounce that stuff.
There's the 1, 2, 3 punch. The bottom line with this problem is the drinking water is potable that they supply, according to the one page of 15 to 17 items that they test for. And the EPA and the law, or the courts, will say it's potable water. It meets the quality drinking water quality standards. Well, we all know that it doesn't. There's mysteries in the water. People ask me what's in the water, and I say empty space, because the distance between the water molecules is so great. You know, it's like 6 miles away before the next water molecule. And there's all this space. That's what dissolved means. It fits between the water molecules. It's mostly empty space in there. So if you have a lead ion or bismuth or whatever it happens to be, it's got a lot of places to go hide so you can't see it. And if you're not, don't care about it, well, it's potable, which means in my dictionary, it won't kill you today. So they don't make the water for drinking, actually. That's kind of a thorn in their side, because most of the sales is to make car parts, water lawns, bathe, feed the, production.
Car parts. Well, wait a minute. Wait, General Motors, or whatever its name is from bankruptcy, they just use whatever name they want to. They were able to disconnect from the Flint water plant because it was corroding engine parts. But meanwhile, the people of Flint we were drinking it. We were cooking in it. We were bathing in it. I didn't know till 2015. Honest to goodness, I'll give them the credit for this. Melissa, somehow, I was on my way home from the hospital, and apparently I used to take video in the back of the ambulance, and I'm finding this stuff in my memories. I don't share it. But they caught me, and her and Clarissa did a double take, whatever. My water got tested by Virginia Tech. And I'll never forget, because it was on Labor Day weekend, so it had to be on the Saturday. They called me on Monday. The parts per billion were so high that I got a phone call, and my response was cocky, because I didn't know. I said, well, don't worry, we're from Massachusetts, we're from Boston, we drink bottled water. And he said, do you cook in it, do you bathe in it? And then asked questions, and I said, I have a son living with autism, and woke me up right away. I had no idea from 2014 until Labor Day of 2015. I'd come and I'd go, and knowing that it was there, but I was gone so much more. And the environment in itself had impacted me so terribly. By the time the water switched, it only took a few weeks. I lost all of my hair. I was down to bones. I mean, it was insane. And they had me convinced I had MS. I was completely paralyzed on my left side. Well, look, I want you to see my fat belly, but yeah, I'm on one leg dancing. I'm on my left leg moving. So it can happen. out of exposure. So something's really, really wrong. And it's taken me a lot longer than it should have because, the powers that be, how do you say it? They insulted my bodily integrity even here. They insulted our bodily integrity. What I had learned through this process was a couple of things. Don't ever click to anybody. People, and I don't mean friends and things like that. I don't look at heroes as our elected officials because they have a job to do and they really should be doing it, or all the TV people that came out, or the news people that came out and played the game for lead only, for the whole thing. It's not almost like, they further endangered us, in my opinion. I mean, you can have selective of whatever you want to have. But if you're putting lives in danger by not putting out all the information when you have it, in my opinion, you're responsible as well. Anyway, I don't know why I said that, but we were going somewhere. The struggle's real. The struggle's real. I see Clara's looking at me thinking, what is she talking about? Hi, Clara.
Well, we do have a new lab in Flint, the People's Lab.
Yeah, one question on that real quick. Is that, when they're doing that, they're testing water. And how are they doing that? Are they doing it the way parts per billion? Or are they doing it in that small, selective kind of way that...
Yeah. They were donated an ICP unit, inductively coupled plasma. It's a $160,000 instrument that checks very, very small numbers, and the numbers that are required for lead down to non-detect. So I suggest everybody get your water over there. They're not charging anything. It's
but even if it's at non-detect, without that infrastructure being replaced from whatever water source it's coming from now, seriously, throughout the entire, let me finish.
They don't make the water for drinking. So you have a certain amount of personal responsibility to put in a brick wall to make sure that what you're drinking is, and you would call it a reverse osmosis unit, whether that's the right treatment for your fingerprint of water. That's why the analysis is so important.
Yeah, I understand all that, but even if it says your water is, I don't know how to say this. They have to replace everything. They have to replace the infrastructure. They have to replace the pipes. They have to.
No, they don't. They don't. If it meets the potability of the natural.
They caused the damage.
Well, if it meets the requirement, that's the law. In a court of law, that's what's going to go down.
It's kind of like Mark Edwards saying, oh, all these poor people with all this lead, and then coming out and saying the lead didn't impact people.
You have legislators that if you want better drinking water standards, you have to put the arm. For instance, Dan Kildee. I had 3 meetings scheduled with Dan, 2 letters, 2 appointments, and he never showed up to talk to me. Now here we have an asset right there in Flint that's willing to give blood, guts, and gore to the city of Flint, and a person of elected official, congressman, doesn't talk to me. That is sinful.
He didn't talk to anybody. Listen.
Well,
he turned around and he told Aaron Brockovich, Bob, Robert, what's Bob's last name? Up in D.C., and I know he was Melissa was there, in 2015 in February. You know what, Robert Bocock? It's not my problem. It's a local level. He knew what was going on. Nobody poops without Dan Kildee knowing. Don't get me into this, okay? Because I don't want to start pointing.
Why are people electing these people?
Listen.
Yeah. Therein lies personal responsibility.
You're right. Why are people holding back information from who are on the ground that can be life-saving information? because they want to break a story. It doesn't make sense, because if everybody was working together and putting that information out together, we'd be in a lot better place right now. But you know what? I can't blame anybody specifically on the ground who was not well, because we were easy prey for gaslighting. The easiest in the world. They still do it. They have everybody going in 50 different directions. Someone will talk to you and think they're handing you a chip of something, and they're really not. You know what? I took the knife they used out of my back a long time ago. The only difference is I'm not handing it back to them to use again. That's why we're going to try and start doing what we're doing now. I don't know why these people keep getting elected. I don't know why people come into Flint and, you know, I guess they think they're helping, or I think it was said to me by somebody, well, don't you want us to go in there and make the people feel better? No, I don't. Because you know what? It's a photo op, and these people think they're being saved. I'm not kidding, on my mother's soul, a person that came into Flint literally told me to pack my stuff, my kids and everything, and my grandkids, and on their dime, they were bringing us back to Massachusetts, getting us out of there.
Resolve is to move.
I said that day, literally, and there was nothing this person could do to talk me into it. No, I'll wait, because I thought they were there to save us. You know, I'll wait. And then when I finally got out, because I was really near death, I was to go. At least we'll be able to get the word out, and we'll be able to get people help. Are you talking about being shut down? The only political liability to somebody is themselves. If you're an elected official and you're calling somebody a political liability, you're your own political liability.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
Yeah.
so let's get past all that. And
Yeah.
I know where I was going with Mark Edwards real quick. Not Mark Edwards, I don't want to say specifically, but Virginia Tech. I'd gotten a call from somebody on their team, their volunteer or citizen team, asking, because I'd moved, if they could check the water at my old residence. And I had said no, because my landlord jumped down my throat that I had done without her permission. And they said, okay, so the message must not have got to them. They got to they checked the water, but they checked it, and they sent it back saying it was fine. They checked it out of the spigot in the hose, which is illegal anyway, to draw water for testing. So I did let them know, and they eliminated that, so I have to say that much. But yeah, there's just no way it was fine. And let's not forget that letters were sent to landlords. But, you know, letting everyone know if you have somebody living with an underlying health condition or anything, to let the tenants know, and they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't. They did nothing to protect them.
Yeah, well, if the analysis meets their potability standard, then they're not under any liability or
Oh, if they got lead lines, they're not providing safe, clean drinking. They're not providing access to safe, clean drinking and bathing water. They're just not. If they've got those lead lines and they know it, they're not
they
doing
must
it.
be. I mean, this is what, 6 years now, Fast Start. They must be about done.
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get back to
yeah, where do you go from here, you know?
where do we go? How do we get America to understand that this was just not some lead? And can you elaborate on that? I can't even pull the list up because I've got my phone in my hand and my computer in front of me. But that email, that host, I can't even pronounce the stuff. I can't. A lot of it on there. It's almost like we're walking General Motors. We've got like all these metals we've been exposed to, all kinds of stuff. People are sick. I mean, I've never seen so many people with COPD in my life. How does everyone get diagnosed with COPD in Flint? All of these people have it, and or they're on, or sleep apnea, MS, but people caught on to the MS thing, so they've changed that diagnosis. I mean, they're just throw it right on you. They don't.
Yeah. Well, somebody might look at putting together a technical proposal and sending it into Washington to put Flint down as a study program to really get at these issues, to get to the bottom of them on a cost-benefit basis, because it's costing tax dollars, and people aren't working because they don't feel good, and all these things. It's a real cultural issue here, a little microcosm of, and there's others all around the nation. I think if
I know of a place in Texas, a small town, I can't think of the name, and I know someone out there, and their Lions Club or whatever, no, it's not the Lions Club, it's a different, Rotary, has been giving them filters. It's been like 10 years, and these people are living like this, and some of them aren't legal. It's a majority. The town is a small town. It's majority Hispanics and Latinos, and that's what happens. Look at Flint. The majority of people were black. Who can't say that this is not some sort of, and there were socioeconomic issues, people who were disabled. This is not systematic racism, is the word they use, in every single sense of the imagination. I mean, the elected officials out there came out and said it more than once. If this was in Grand Blanc, people would be yelling and screaming. Well, who are you? Why aren't you yelling and screaming? Meaning them.
Yeah. So again, what do you do from here? That's there was a scientific study that showed that people live longer if they move around in their life, because
they can't leave Flint. Do you know what? There's a woman right now.
After day.
Right. There's a woman right now. I mean, people are just waiting. They're waiting for the lawsuit. They're waiting for their homes to sell. Like they're going to sell for they're not going to sell for pennies to what they owe on their mortgages. They're stuck. They're stuck.
Yeah.
Literally stuck, and everybody knows it. And you know what? When I said to Dr. Mona, they need to get the most vulnerable people out of there. They need to do that right away. And I stopped myself. I said, no, quite frankly, everybody there, at least the majority of people, have got to be living with something wrong with their autoimmune system because of all this. They need to get everybody out of there. And her response was, I cannot disagree with you. Because as a doctor, she couldn't. She gave me the safe answer.
Yeah. So the group needs to get together and with the best brains and formulate something. All these things can be done. There was a guy when millions were being put into Flint. I made some contacts, and I said, don't be throwing millions back in Flint. Pick a project. Now, people don't know this, but I met 3 different people at the Tesla company, and with this message: come in, look around, pick a project, finish the project, and leave, but just don't throw money at Flint. So they did that, and I think that's the way to do it: is to plead to the nation and get some sort of a. My gosh, there's universities, PhD people in human behavior that would love to come into Flint and
no, they don't want to.
cultural project here. Put this all together and
the universities around Flint and in Michigan are going to make sure that they're just jumping on everything. There's people writing grants right now. Every single idea that's put out there on Facebook, they're writing grants, they're doing it. They don't want anybody else. I offered to ask Partners in Health to come in. And
well, the government does not want this is a profound statement. The government does not want private sector involved.
Partners in Health is though worldwide. Anyway, and they had literally said under their direction only. Meanwhile, Partners in Health said that they don't do that because they don't raise money. We'd have to raise the money for that. Which is insane. Yeah, now, Doctors Without Borders are coming in because of COVID, and I hope to heck that they go into Flint. And I hope that the people of Flint, whether they're handing these people notes, whatever they're doing, if they get in there, they let them know everything, because it was genocide. Anyway, is there anything else you think that's important?
Well, it needs some sort of a focus to get organized and do some professional planning and writing, and it's going to take outside people to get that done. And
will they let that happen though?
Yeah, it can be funded by interested parties out there. Yeah, I think it can be done. And it wouldn't have to be a high-profile thing either.
Well, something needs to be done right now because we're getting shot in the leg with this lawsuit. This is a joke. It's a joke. And I mean, you're a scientist, you're not a doctor, but definitely the lead and a lot of other things, you certainly can say that it's irreversible at this point. I know it's irreversible. The lead alone is. The lead alone is irreversible.
Mm-hmm.
And they knew what they were doing. They knew with the adults it wouldn't show up in the blood after a certain amount of time.
Why? Does anybody else out there have any questions?
Clara, do you have any questions, sweetheart? Clara, can you hear me?
I hear somebody in the distance.
Yeah, that might be somebody just listening in. I see Clara, though. Clara, I love you to life. Wave at me if you can hear me.
She can't hear you.
How about you? Call her name.
Clara, can you hear me?
Or maybe she's just maybe not talking. Okay.
All right. Well, it's been real.
I'll talk to you more. And your name is Robert Stewart.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
AKA Wastewater Bob.
Yes. And your background in this stuff?
Well, with lead, I've got every certification that the EPA gives. It's lead inspector, lead health risk assessor, lead abatement, lead in project design, which is something else. That's a whole other thing, a project that, you design it before you do it, like the lead program, the lead pipe program. But anyways, I'm an OSHA certified person, and of course a chemist. Associated with Flint for many years. I ran politics. I ran for mayor in '95. I ran as state rep in '96. I've run 5 times against the Genesee County Drain Commissioner.
How he keeps getting elected is beyond me.
Well, he's Democrat, and everybody hits D.
That should be a nonpartisan position.
Oh, absolutely. And it should have qualifications.
Everybody says that, he's just going to be safe because he was a whistleblower, but I think that just kind of goes against everything because nobody's been charged criminally. So his whistleblowing stuff is not needed.
Well, in a radio talk show, he held up his hands and he said, I have no jurisdiction in Flint, Michigan. And so he pulled out, and nobody hears from this guy. I mean, since the last election, you never heard 2 peeps from this guy. And you realize he's paid $600,000 for that 4-year term. So you voters have a buying decision. Every time you vote, it's really a buying decision. If you're going to spend $600,000, who do you want to pay to get something done for you? Yeah. And he keeps getting in there every time. And it's kind of indicative of the area. And, everybody in politics can be complacent if they don't get fired. If they're afraid of getting fired, they have to do something.
People think that all this recall stuff is a waste of time. And yes, it is, and it's a diversion. But it's not, because sometimes you've got to fire somebody. Yeah. And this is the only recourse they have. And I say this to people all the time. You don't know what it's like to have everything taken from you, your rights stripped from you, poisoned and not know it. You fed it to your kids, you fed it to your grandkids, your neighbors and everything else. And you're being made a fool of nationwide as a group of people.
By the movie producers, by the way.
Oh yeah, and every single documentary. The only one, Frontline, Flint's Deadly Water. That was the only one. The rest
Yeah,
of them,
that's
I've heard it all, and I don't care. This is going on my YouTube, and I don't even care. Guess what? Share all of them. Thank you so much for your help. But when we needed the real help, okay, when the people needed to get out of there, and they still do, and it's so much more than lead, and I shouldn't just say Cher, because I love Cher. She is a phenomenon. She's a phenomenon. But all of them, you know, everybody's got their story. Listen, there's a woman who came into Flint who said God sent her. Lovely. She comes and goes. She helps people here and there. That's wonderful. But she's holding on to pertinent information that people could have been prosecuted from. People in the media or journalism, whatever, the alt journalism, they have proof. They have all kinds of stuff, and they're holding on to it for the big story. They want their name out there. But you know what? People have been endangered along the way. People have died. Somebody's got to be held responsible.
Mm-hmm. Well, remember, use that lab.
Yep.
It's there for you.
All right, darling. Well, thank
Did
you.
you mention early on, maybe we were talking before this show, early on you mentioned, is there another movie thing coming into Flint? Did you mention that? Is there something going on with that? Another one? No. Okay.
Not really. There was a documentary that went out, and the person that did the narrating and stuff is got his own problems on Twitter, so let it be. It's just another, it's just another.
Right.
But the thing is that, you know, I think everybody wants their story out there. It's never portrayed like you really want it to be when you figure it out. But in the meantime, while everybody's waiting for that to happen, they're sitting there in contamination, and that's not going to save them. And that's what's so scary to me. It's not, you know. So you see people, and it's the same thing with Eric. Everyone complains about him. Well, you know what? He lost his mother because of the water. He's got a lot to say. And these people who are on the council who are playing games, they need to stop. They haven't put the people of Flint's health first. They haven't. There's very few. Everybody just kind of like, that was, it's still like the last thing. It still is. And listen, am I grateful to Dr. Mona? Absolutely, for bringing out the lead. But are you helping your patients if that's the only thing you're treating them for, and you know that there's so much more? Is that what's going? Huh?
Okay, maybe we close on that.
All right. I'll see you later, bud. I'll talk to you later. Thank you so much.